The space station Nexus 7 floated like a massive silver wheel against the black canvas of space. It was the largest structure Jiwoo Park had ever seen, bigger than any city on Earth. Her ship, the Dawn's Promise, looked like a toy next to it. She stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind her back, watching through the wide viewport as they approached the docking bay. Lieutenant Taemin Choi stood beside her. He was young, only 28, but his eyes held the sharp focus of someone who had seen combat. His hand rested near his belt, a habit from his years in Special Forces. Jiwoo noticed the tension in his shoulders. "Captain, are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "The reports say most species here don't respect humans." Jiwoo smiled slightly. "That's exactly why we need to be here, Lieutenant. Respect isn't given. It's earned." The docking procedure took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, Jiwoo led her small team into the station. The corridor beyond was enormous, built to accommodate species of all sizes. The ceiling stretched at least 15 meters high. Aliens of various shapes and colors moved through the space, some walking, some floating, some moving in ways Jiwoo couldn't quite understand. She heard the whispers almost immediately. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens stopped their conversation to stare. One of them made a clicking sound that her translator interpreted as laughter. She caught fragments of their words. Soft skin, no armor at all. Surprised they survived to reach space. Taemin's jaw tightened. His hand moved toward his sidearm before Jiwoo touched his elbow gently. He stopped. She didn't look at the aliens. She simply walked forward with her head high, her team following. The diplomatic quarters were comfortable enough. Commander Dae Jung-han, her first officer, reviewed the schedule on his tablet. He was 51, with gray at his temples and worry lines around his eyes. He had fought in Earth's unification wars and didn't trust easily. "The main reception is in 3 hours," he said. "All the major species will be there, including the Thurians." Dr. Ha-Yoon Lee looked up from her medical scanner. She was 42, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I've been reading about them. Warrior culture. They value strength above everything else. Their ambassador has a reputation for being difficult." "Difficult how?" Jiwoo asked. "He challenges species he considers weak, forces them to prove themselves or lose face in front of the council." Ha-Yoon paused. "Captain, humans are going to be at the top of his list." Jiwoo nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready." The grand promenade was even larger than the docking corridor. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars above. Hundreds of aliens moved through the space, gathering in groups according to species. Music that Jiwoo couldn't quite understand played from hidden speakers. The air smelled strange, a mix of atmospheres adjusted for different biologies. Jiwoo wore her formal uniform, dark blue with silver trim. No weapons, as required by protocol. She moved through the crowd with Taemin half a step behind her. Daejung and Ha-Yoon followed at a respectful distance. Young Ensign Hyun-Soo Kim, their communications officer, stayed close to Daejung, his eyes wide as he took in the variety of alien life. She found a display of cultural artifacts near the eastern wall and stopped to examine them. There were weapons from a dozen different worlds, each designed for different hands, different purposes. She was studying a curved blade when she felt someone approach from behind. Someone very large. "Fascinating, aren't they?" The voice was deep, rumbling like distant thunder. Jiwoo turned. The Thurian ambassador stood before her, and she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He was over 7 feet tall, built like a tank. His skin was covered in chitinous plates that looked harder than steel, colored deep red and black. His arms were as thick as her torso. When he smiled, she saw teeth like daggers. "Ambassador Kale," she said calmly, "I've heard much about you. And I about you, Captain Park, the human who comes seeking trade routes." He gestured at the weapons display. "Tell me, do any of these interest you? Or perhaps you prefer the weapons of your own people?" "We have weapons, yes, though we hope diplomacy will make them unnecessary." Kyle laughed, and the sound drew attention from nearby groups. "Diplomacy. How very soft." He leaned down, bringing his massive head closer to her level. "I've studied your species, Captain. Humans, no claws. No venom, no natural armor. Even your bones are weak compared to most spacefaring races. Tell me, how did such fragile creatures ever survive long enough to leave their world?" Jiwoo kept her expression neutral. "We adapted. We learned. We survived. Adapted," Kale repeated. He straightened to his full height. More aliens were gathering now, sensing confrontation. With what? Your soft skin? Your empty hands? He held up one of his own hands. It was huge, fingers tipped with claws that could tear through metal. These are hands made for combat. These are the hands of a warrior species. Then he looked at Jiwoo's hands. They were small compared to his, unarmored, no claws, just 5 fingers and an opposable thumb. Human hands. He laughed again, louder this time. What could you possibly do with such empty hands, Captain? Could you scratch me? Would you try to pinch me? The crowd of aliens joined his laughter. These hands wouldn't survive a single blow against a real warrior. Jiwoo looked down at her hands. She flexed her fingers slowly. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. My hands have carried friends from battlefields. They've performed surgery to save lives. They've held newborns and closed the eyes of the dying. They've built machines and written poetry. She looked up at Kale. They've done many things, Ambassador. What they haven't done is give up. The laughter stopped. Kale's eyes narrowed. Pretty words. But words mean nothing in the real world. The galaxy respects strength, Captain. Strength you clearly lack. Then let me prove otherwise. The words were out before Jiwoo fully considered them, but once said she wouldn't take them back. Kale's expression changed, surprise flickering across his alien features. You challenge me? You challenged my species, Ambassador. I'm simply accepting, unless Thurian warriors only mock those they believe can't fight back. The crowd murmured. Kale's armor plates shifted as his muscles tensed. For a moment, Jiwoo thought he might attack right there, but then he smiled, showing all those terrible teeth. Very well, Captain Park, I accept. Under Council protocols, we meet in the challenge arena in 3 days. The terms are simple. Hand-to-hand combat until one party yields or cannot continue. No weapons, no assistance, just your empty hands against mine. He leaned close again, voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. When I'm done with you, humanity will learn its proper place in this galaxy. Jiwoo met his eyes without flinching. 3 days, Ambassador. I'll be ready. Kyle walked away, the crowd parting before him like water. The moment he was gone, Taemin stepped to Jiwoo's side. Captain, with respect, what were you thinking? His voice was tight with worry. He's twice your size and covered in armor. Daejung approached, his face grim. This wasn't part of the mission plan, Jiwoo. No, Jiwoo agreed. She looked at her hands again. Those empty hands Kale had mocked. But it's necessary. We can't back down now. We won't. Hayun was already pulling up data on her tablet. I'll need to study Thurian anatomy. There has to be a weakness somewhere. We have 3 days, Jiwoo said. She looked at each of her crew members in turn. Let's use them well. As they walked back toward their quarters, Jiwoo could feel the eyes of 100 different species watching her. Some looked curious. Some looked amused. Most looked like they were already planning her funeral. But she walked with her spine straight and her head high. Because whatever else humans were, they were survivors. And she was about to remind the galaxy why that mattered. The training room aboard the Dawn's Promise was small but efficient. Padded floors, reinforced walls, and equipment designed for combat practice. Jiwoo stood in the center, wearing a simple training outfit. Sweat already dampened her shirt. She had been working for 2 hours straight. Taemin circled her, wearing thick protective padding that made him look twice his normal size. The padding was meant to simulate Kale's armored body. He moved in quickly, throwing a heavy punch. Jiwoo slipped to the side, letting it pass by her head. Her hands came up, striking at the padded joints where armor plates would meet. Good, Taemin said. But don't just hit. Hit with purpose. Every strike needs to mean something. They reset. This time when Taemin attacked, Jiwoo didn't just dodge. She moved inside his reach, too close for his long arms to be effective, and drove her palm into a padded joint. The impact made a solid thump. Better, Taemin said, nodding approval. Remember, he's built for power. You're built for endurance. Make him work. Make him tired. Then strike when he's weak. The door opened and Dr. Hayun entered, carrying her tablet. Her expression was focused, excited even. Captain, I think I've found something. Jiwoo grabbed a towel and wiped her face. Show me. Hayun activated the holographic display above her tablet. A 3-dimensional image of a Thurian appeared, rotating slowly in the air. The armor plating was clearly visible, covering most of the body like natural tank armor. I've been studying their biology all night, Hayun said. The Thurians evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bones are incredibly dense, their muscles designed for short bursts of extreme power. They were ambush predators waiting for prey and then striking with overwhelming force. And their weaknesses? Daejung asked. He had been watching from the doorway, arms crossed. Hyun zoomed in on the Thurian's respiratory system. Their lungs are optimized for anaerobic activity, short, powerful bursts, but they can't sustain activity for long periods. After 10 or 15 minutes of continuous exertion, they start to slow down dramatically. She rotated the image to show the joints. And here, look at the joints. The armor plating doesn't cover them completely. There are gaps at the knees, elbows, and between the ribs where the plates connect. These gaps need to be flexible for movement, so they're only covered by thinner tissue. Jiwoo studied the image carefully. She could see it now. The small, vulnerable points hidden beneath all that impressive armor. So we make him chase me. Tire him out, then target the weak points. Exactly, Hyun said. Humans evolved completely differently. We were persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, across the African plains. We can run in the heat of the day when other predators had to rest. We can keep going long after other animals collapsed from exhaustion. Taemin removed his padding. It's why we sweat. Most species don't. They overheat and have to stop, but humans can regulate temperature and keep moving. It's our secret weapon, Hyun continued. Not claws or armor or venom, just the ability to keep going when everyone else has to quit. Daejung stepped fully into the room. This could work. But Jiwoo, you'll need to be patient. You can't let him provoke you into fighting his way. I understand, Jiwoo said. She looked at the hologram, memorizing the locations of every vulnerable point. Let's get back to work. The next 2 days passed in a blur of training. Jiwoo worked until her muscles screamed, then worked more. Taemin pushed her hard, attacking from different angles, forcing her to react faster, strike more precisely. They practiced specific techniques over and over. How to palm strike a joint to cause maximum damage. How to use her whole body weight behind an elbow strike. How to twist and use leverage to throw an opponent much larger than herself. Between training sessions, Hyun fed her information about Thurian biology. Jiwoo learned how their armor plates connected, where the nerves ran closest to the surface, which joints could hyperextend if pressured the right way. She absorbed it all, turning data into strategy. Hyun-soo brought news from the station. Word of the challenge had spread across multiple sectors. Betting pools had formed. Most bets favored Kale winning within the first 5 minutes. Some species were already planning watch parties. The pressure mounted with each report. On the second night, Jiwoo sat alone in the observation deck. Earth was visible through the viewport, a blue marble hanging in the darkness. She thought about home, about the people depending on the trade routes she was trying to secure, about the colonies that needed medical supplies, about what it meant to represent all of humanity in front of the galaxy. Taemin found her there. He sat down without asking permission, a privilege of their long friendship. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much on my mind. You know I could take your place, Taemin said quietly. I've trained my whole life for combat. Olympics, Special Forces. This is what I do. Jiwoo shook her head. He challenged me specifically. Challenged humanity through me. If I send someone else, it proves his point that we're weak. You're not weak, Captain. I've seen you fight, I know, Jiwoo said. But the galaxy doesn't know that yet. Tomorrow we teach them. They sat in silence for a while, watching Earth slowly rotate. Finally, Taemin spoke again. When I was competing in Taekwondo at the Olympics, do you know what the hardest part was? Not the training. Not even the fighting. It was the moment before the match started. Standing there, knowing everyone was watching, knowing I represented my country. The weight of all those expectations. How did you handle it? Jiwoo asked. I remembered that pressure is a privilege. Not everyone gets the chance to stand in that arena. I was there because I earned it. Because I worked for it. He looked at her. Just like you earned this moment. Whatever happens tomorrow, you belong in that arena. Jiwoo smiled. Thank you, Lieutenant. The night before the challenge, there was another diplomatic function. Jiwoo attended, knowing it was expected. She wore her dress uniform and walked into the crowded room with confidence she didn't entirely feel. Eyes followed her everywhere. Whispered conversations stopped when she passed. Kale was there, of course. He stood in the center of a group of admirers telling stories of past victories. When he saw Jiwoo, he excused himself and walked over. The crowd parted before him. Captain Park, he said, his voice carrying across the room. I'm pleased to see you. I was concerned you might have reconsidered our arrangement. Not at all, Ambassador. I'm looking forward to it. Kale's expression showed surprise, though he tried to hide it. He had expected fear. "You're very brave. Or very foolish. In my experience, the two are often the same thing." "There's a human saying," Jiwoo replied calmly, "fortune favors the bold." "And there's a Thurian saying," Kale countered, "the bold die first. But please don't let me discourage you. I'm genuinely curious to see what your empty hands can accomplish." He leaned down slightly. "I won't kill you, Captain. That's against the rules. But when I'm finished, you'll wish I had. Your humiliation will be complete. Humanity will learn that there are consequences for arrogance." Jiwoo met his eyes without flinching. "We'll see, Ambassador. We'll see." She walked away, leaving Kale standing there. Her heart pounded, but her steps were steady. Behind her, she heard the whispers resume. Some species thought she was insane. Others admired her courage. A few seemed genuinely interested to see what would happen. That night, Jiwoo slept surprisingly well. She dreamed of Earth's ancient savannas, of humans running under a burning sun, chasing prey that was faster and stronger, but couldn't outlast them. She dreamed of her ancestors who survived not because they were the biggest or the strongest, but because they refused to give up. When she woke, it was morning. The day of the challenge had arrived. Jiwoo got out of bed, stretched her muscles, and looked at her hands. Those empty hands that Kale had mocked. She flexed her fingers, feeling the strength in them. The precision, the countless hours of training that lived in every movement. The galaxy was watching. Billions of beings across dozens of species, all waiting to see the human fail. All waiting to confirm what they already believed, that humans were too weak to matter. Jiwoo smiled. They were all about to learn something new. The challenge arena was a perfect circle 50 meters across. The floor was covered in a soft material that would cushion falls but provide good traction. Above, the ceiling was transparent, showing the stars and the observation galleries where thousands of aliens had gathered to watch. Cameras floated at various angles, broadcasting to billions more across the galaxy. Jiwoo walked through the entrance tunnel. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force. She wore simple combat clothes, black pants and a fitted shirt. No armor, no protection of any kind. Her feet were bare, better for feeling the ground and maintaining balance. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight braid. She looked small in the massive arena. Human, fragile. Alone. From the opposite tunnel, Kale emerged. The crowd's roar intensified. He wore ceremonial battle gear, his natural armor polished until it gleamed like blood-red metal. He was massive, over 7 feet of pure predatory power. His muscles rippled as he walked. His claws caught the light. He raised his arms to the crowd and they responded with cheers and alien calls of approval. Jiwoo watched him. She noted how he moved, the weight distribution, the slight favor he showed to his right side. Every detail mattered. The Arbiter, a tall being with silver skin and no visible mouth, stood at the center of the arena. Its voice came from a translator device echoing through the space. "Combatants approach." Jiwoo walked to the center. Kale did the same. Standing next to him, the size difference was even more dramatic. His shadow fell across her like a building. "The rules are clear," the Arbiter announced. "Combat continues until one party yields, is incapacitated, or is declared unable to continue by medical authority. Lethal force is prohibited. Environmental conditions are standard. Do both parties understand and accept these terms?" "Yes," Kale said. "Yes," Jiwoo said. The Arbiter looked at each of them in turn. "Then take your positions. Begin on my signal." They stepped apart, putting 10 meters between them. Kale settled into a wide stance, arms spread, ready to grab or strike. He smiled, confident. This would be easy. Jiwoo took a balanced stance, weight on the balls of her feet, hands raised but relaxed. Her breathing was slow and steady. Her mind was calm. She remembered everything she had learned, everything she had practiced. She was ready. The Arbiter's hand dropped. "Begin!" Kale charged immediately. The crowd roared as he closed the distance in 3 massive strides. He swung a heavy overhand right, aiming to end the fight with one blow. The force behind that punch could have shattered concrete. Jiwoo shifted her weight, stepped to the outside of the punch, and let it pass by her head with inches to spare. She didn't counterattack. She just moved away, circling. Kale pivoted and threw a left hook. Again, Jiwoo moved. Not a big movement, just enough. The punch cut through empty air. She continued circling, light on her feet, watching. "Stand still," Kale growled. He rushed forward, throwing a combination of punches. Left, right, left. each blow powerful enough to drop an ox, each one missing as Jiwoo flowed around them like water. The crowd's roar began to change. Confusion mixed with the excitement. This wasn't what they expected. The human was supposed to fall quickly. Instead, she was making the mighty Thurian look clumsy. 2 minutes passed. Then 5. Kale kept pressing, kept attacking. Jiwoo kept moving. She began to add small strikes, testing jabs that hit his armored torso and did no damage but gathered information. How thick was the armor? How did the plates connect? Where did they flex? Kale barely noticed these light touches. He was focused on landing one solid hit. Just one. That's all it would take. But the human wouldn't stay still. She was always moving, always just out of reach. At the 8-minute mark, Jiwoo noticed Kale's breathing change. It was subtle, but she heard it. The deep rumbling of air moving through his massive lungs was coming faster. His movements, while still powerful, had lost a fraction of their explosive speed. At 12 minutes, Kale's armor plates were dark with sweat. His chest heaved. He was still dangerous, still strong. But the endurance that was humanity's gift was winning. Jiwoo's breathing, by contrast, was still controlled. Steady. She could do this all day if needed. The crowd understood now. The whispers spread through the galleries. The human wasn't trying to overpower the Thurian. She was outlasting him. The realization sent ripples through the observers. Some species had never considered this strategy. Others began to see humans in a new light. 15 minutes. Kale's frustration boiled over. He roared and charged, trying to tackle Jiwoo to the ground where his mass advantage would overwhelm her. But desperation made him sloppy. Jiwoo saw it coming a full second before he moved. At the last instant, she sidestepped. As Kale's momentum carried him past, she struck. A precise palm heel strike to his extended knee, right where Hyun had shown her the armor was thinnest. There was an audible crack. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent arena. Kyle stumbled, barely keeping his feet. Pain flashed across his face. His right leg wasn't working correctly. The joint was damaged. Now Jiwoo's strategy shifted. She had waited, observed, tired him out. Now came the second phase. She moved inside his guard, too close for his long arms to be effective. Her empty hands, those hands he had mocked, became weapons of surgical precision. A strike to the damaged knee. Kale's leg buckled. An elbow to a joint in his arm where the armor had a gap. She felt something give. A palm strike to the side of his torso where the ribs met the armor plates. Kale tried to fight back. He swung wildly, desperately. But he was tired, injured, and slow. Jiwoo was neither. She flowed around his attacks and continued her systematic dismantling of his defenses. Another strike to his ribs. Same spot. And another. She wasn't hitting with wild power. Each strike was calculated, targeted, designed to exploit the weakness in his armor. 3 strikes to the same point, each one driving force through the gap between the plates. Kale attempted one final desperate swing. A massive haymaker that would have ended the fight if it connected. Jiwoo saw it coming like it was moving in slow motion. She caught his extended arm, used his own momentum and her knowledge of leverage to throw him off balance. As Kale staggered, completely off balance, Jiwoo set her feet. She drew back her right fist and drove it forward with every ounce of her 120 pounds behind it. Not a wild punch. A perfect punch. All her training, all her practice, everything Taemin had taught her, focused into one moment. Her fist struck the gap between his armor plates, right where his ribs were most vulnerable. The force, combined with perfect targeting and Kale's own imbalance, drove through the weakness. There was a sickening crunch. Not one rib breaking. Multiple ribs. The sound carried across the silent arena. Kyle's eyes went wide. His mouth opened in a soundless gasp. The pain was overwhelming. His body couldn't process it. He dropped to one knee, then both knees clutching his side. He tried to breathe and couldn't. The broken ribs made every breath agony. The medical team rushed forward, their scanners already working. The arbiter raised one hand. Match concluded. Winner, Captain Jiwoo Park of Earth. For 3 full seconds, the arena was completely silent. Thousands of beings, dozens of species, all struck dumb by what they had just witnessed. The human had won. The fragile, unarmored, supposedly weak human had defeated one of the galaxy's premier warrior species. Then the noise began. Some species cheered. Others simply stared. A few made sounds of disbelief. The broadcast was replaying the final sequence. showing in slow motion how Jiwoo's empty hands had found the weak point and delivered devastating force with perfect precision. Jiwoo stood over Kyle, breathing hard now, sweat running down her face. The fight had taken 17 minutes. She had never stopped moving, never stopped thinking, never given up. Just like her ancestors who chased prey across endless plains, she looked down at Kale. The medics were treating him, preparing to move him to the medical bay. His eyes met hers. In them she saw shock, pain, and something else. The beginning of understanding. Jiwoo bowed. A slight, respectful bow. Not mocking. Not celebrating. Just acknowledging the end of the fight. Then she turned and walked toward her exit tunnel. Her steps were steady. Her back was straight. Her empty hands hung at her sides, relaxed. In the tunnel, her crew waited. Taemin was grinning like a madman. Hyun looked vindicated. Daejung nodded approval. Young Hyun-soo was practically bouncing with excitement. "That was incredible, Captain," Hyun-soo said. "The whole galaxy watched." "Everyone saw?" Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Then maybe they'll think twice before underestimating us again." The galaxy had learned something today. Humans didn't have claws or armor or venom. They had something better. They had determination, intelligence, the ability to outlast any opponent, to find any weakness, to turn any disadvantage into strategy. Those empty hands Kale had mocked, they had just shattered his ribs and changed how the galaxy saw humanity forever. The video had been watched 4 billion times in the first 12 hours. That number kept climbing. Across 36 sectors on hundreds of worlds, beings of every species watched the small human woman defeat the mighty Thurian warrior. They watched it in slow motion, analyzing every move. They watched it in real time, feeling the tension build. They watched it over and over, trying to understand what they had just seen. Jiwoo stood in her quarters aboard the Dawn's Promise, watching news feeds from across the galaxy. Hyun-soo had compiled the reports, translating them from dozens of languages. The reactions were mixed, intense, and spreading like wildfire. The Venturi, a peaceful species often bullied by stronger neighbors, had declared a planetary holiday. Their leader gave a speech about how strength came in many forms. In their capital city, crowds gathered to watch the fight on public screens, cheering every time Jiwoo landed a strike. The Kaldari hegemony, a military empire that had dismissed humanity as beneath notice, had gone silent. Their military analysts were reportedly studying the fight frame by frame. One leaked report suggested they were revising their threat assessment of human combat capabilities by several orders of magnitude. The Thurian High Command issued a brief statement acknowledging Ambassador Kell's defeat with honor. But behind closed doors, according to intelligence reports, there were heated debates. Some Thurian generals wanted to challenge more humans, to prove their warrior culture's superiority. Others argued that the fight revealed fundamental flaws in their combat doctrine. "Captain," Hyun-soo said, scrolling through more data on his tablet, "you're trending on 47 different social networks. They're calling you the Giant Slayer, the Persistence Hunter, the Empty Hand Warrior." He looked up, eyes wide. "You're famous." "I'm a symbol," Jiwoo corrected quietly. "That's different." Daejung entered without knocking, his usual caution overridden by urgency. "We have a situation. A good situation, I think, but still a situation." "What is it?" "We've received 17 formal communication requests in the last hour. 3 from species wanting military alliances, 4 requesting human advisors for territorial disputes, 5 asking about cultural exchange programs, and 1 from Ambassador Kale himself." Jiwoo's eyebrows rose. "Kale wants to talk to me?" "He's out of medical care. His ribs are healing. He requested a private meeting, just you and him, neutral ground." Daejung's expression was concerned. "I don't like it. Could be a trap. Or it could be an opportunity," Jiwoo said. She thought for a moment. "Accept the meeting. But have Taemin nearby, just in case." They met in a small conference room on Nexus 7, one of the neutral spaces set aside for informal diplomatic discussions. The room was simple, just a table and chairs designed to accommodate various body types. When Jiwoo entered, Kale was already there. He looked diminished somehow. Still massive, still dangerous, but something in his posture had changed. His armor was less polished. His movements were careful, protecting his healing ribs. When he saw Jiwoo, he didn't smile or threaten. He simply gestured to a chair. "Captain Park, thank you for coming." Jiwoo sat, keeping the table between them. "Ambassador, how are you feeling?" like I was hit by a transport ship. He touched his side gingerly. Your doctor was right. You found every weak point in my armor. Every single one. I've been fighting my entire life, Captain. Trained since childhood in the Thurian way of war. And you dismantled me like a child. You're not a child, Ambassador. You're a skilled warrior. But you were trained to rely on strength and armor. When those weren't enough, you didn't have other options. Kyle nodded slowly. I've been thinking about that. About your species. You said your ancestors were persistence hunters? Yes, they would track prey for hours, sometimes days. Not fast enough to catch it quickly. Not strong enough to overpower it. But able to keep going long after the prey collapsed from exhaustion. That's what you did to me, Kale said. You made me your prey. You ran me down. I was so focused on landing one powerful strike that I never realized I was the one being hunted. He leaned back carefully. The Thurians evolved on a world of apex predators. We learned to be the strongest, the most armored, the most dangerous, because that's what survival meant on our world. But humans, Jiwoo said, evolved on a world where we weren't the strongest. We had to be smart, patient. We had to outlast everything else. And now you bring that to the stars. Kyle was quiet for a moment. I came here to apologize, Captain. Not because Thurian culture demands it. We don't apologize for losing fair fights. But because I dismissed your species without understanding what you were. That was ignorance, and ignorance is inexcusable for someone in my position. Jiwoo felt some of her tension ease. Apology accepted, Ambassador. There's something else, Kel continued. Your petition for the medical supply trade routes. It comes before the full council tomorrow. I will be voting in favor. Thank you. That means a great deal. I'm not doing it as a favor, Kyle said bluntly. I'm doing it because humanity has proven it belongs at the table. You've earned your place, Captain Park, and I'll make sure the council knows it. After the meeting, Jiwoo walked through Nexus 7's corridors. The reactions she received had changed dramatically. Aliens who had looked through her before now stepped aside respectfully. Some even nodded in greeting. A group of young Venturi actually approached her, asking shyly for her autograph. Taemin fell into step beside her. It's different now, isn't it? Very different, Jiwoo agreed. Is it what you wanted? She considered the question. I wanted respect for humanity, recognition that we have value to contribute to the galaxy, but I didn't expect this level of attention. She smiled slightly. I'm not sure anyone could expect this. The next day, the Galactic Council met in its grand chamber. Jiwoo sat in the human delegation section, which suddenly seemed less isolated than before. Other delegates made eye contact, some even nodding and greeting. The human petition was item 7 on the agenda. When it came up, the council speaker called for statements. Jiwoo had prepared a speech outlining the humanitarian need, the mutual benefits of trade, the potential for future cooperation. She never got to give it. Ambassador Kale stood first. Council members, I will be brief. 3 days ago, I challenged the capability of the human species. I was wrong. Humanity has demonstrated qualities we have undervalued. Endurance, strategic thinking, and the ability to turn apparent weakness into strength. They have earned not just this trade route, but our respect and attention. I vote in favor. Then the Venturi delegate stood. For too long, this council has measured worth by military might alone. Humanity reminds us that intelligence, persistence, and adaptability are equally important. More than that, they offer hope to smaller species that we too can stand alongside the giants. I vote enthusiastically in favor. One by one, delegates spoke. Some praised human combat skills. Others highlighted the medical advances humanity could share. A few mentioned the entertainment value of human determination. But all of them voted yes. When the final tally appeared on the display, Jiwoo had to read it twice to believe it. 42 in favor, 3 abstaining, 0 opposed. It was nearly unanimous. The medical supplies would reach the colonies. Lives would be saved. But more importantly, humanity had taken a massive step forward in galactic society. They were no longer the weak newcomers to be dismissed. They were players, contributors, a species to be taken seriously. That evening, Jiwoo stood again in the observation deck of her ship. Earth hung in the viewport, beautiful and fragile-looking. Hayun joined her carrying 2 cups of tea. I've been analyzing the data from your fight, Hayun said. Other species are already requesting information about human physiology. They want to understand how we can do what we do. Some are even asking about training exchange programs. What do you think? Jiwoo asked. I think, Hayun said slowly, that we're at the beginning of something much larger than a trade route. We're changing how the galaxy sees us. More than that, we're changing how the galaxy sees itself. The idea that you don't need to be the biggest or strongest to matter, that persistence and intelligence count for something, that's spreading. Jiwoo sipped her tea, thinking about empty hands and shattered expectations, about a 17-minute fight that had echoed across the stars, about humanity's long journey from the savannas of Africa to the infinite reaches of space. Good, she said finally. Let it spread. Let every species know that there are many ways to be strong, many ways to survive, many ways to win. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months had passed since the fight. Jiwoo stood in the main hall of the Galactic Training Center, a new facility built on Nexus 7 specifically for cultural and combat exchange programs. The hall was filled with beings of a dozen different species, all watching as Taemin demonstrated a technique to a mixed class of students. A young Thurian warrior, eager and aggressive much like Kale had once been, challenged the demonstration. He was larger than Taemin, covered in the same intimidating armor. The crowd quieted, waiting to see what would happen. Taemin smiled patiently. Attack me. Use your full strength, the young Thurian charged. Taemin moved like water, redirecting the attack with minimal effort. A twist, a shift of weight, and suddenly the massive warrior was on the ground, Taemin's hand resting gently on a pressure point that immobilized him completely. Strength is valuable, Taemin said, helping the Thurian back to his feet. But technique, timing, and understanding your opponent's weaknesses matter more. This is what humans learned over thousands of years. This is what we can teach you. From the observation gallery above the training floor, Kale watched. He still carried himself like a warrior, but his eyes held new understanding. He saw Jiwoo approach and nodded in greeting. Your lieutenant is an excellent teacher, Kale said. We have 73 Thurian warriors enrolled in his programs. Last month I would have considered that shameful. Now I see it as wisdom. Things have changed quickly, Jiwoo observed. They had to, Kale replied. Your victory showed us that our way of thinking about combat was incomplete. We focused on strength and ignored everything else. That's dangerous when you encounter opponents who fight differently. He gestured to the training floor. Now we learn, we adapt, just as you did. Jiwoo's communicator buzzed. A message from Daejung. She read it and smiled slightly. I have to go. Duty calls. Of course, Commodore. Kale used her new rank with obvious respect. Before you go, I wanted to say something. Thank you for teaching us. Not just combat techniques, but a new way of seeing the galaxy. Jiwoo had been promoted to Commodore 3 months ago, given command of a new initiative called the Cultural Exchange Fleet. Her flagship, the Promise Keeper, was larger than the Dawn's Promise but maintained the same spirit. Its mission was to build bridges between humanity and other species, using understanding rather than force. She found Daejung in the ship's conference room, reviewing holographic displays of star systems. Hayun was there too, along with several new crew members from various species. The team had grown, becoming truly multi-species. We have a situation, Daejung said without preamble. 2 species, the Kessari and the Vortan, are on the edge of war over mining rights to an asteroid field. Both sides have fleets mobilized. The council asked specifically for you to mediate. Why me? Jiwoo asked, though she suspected she knew. Because, Hayun said, you've become known for patience, for finding solutions that others miss. The council believes if anyone can prevent this war, it's you. The negotiations took 4 weeks. 4 long weeks of sitting in conference rooms, listening to demands and counter-demands. Watching 2 proud species circle each other like ancient predators. Both sides wanted complete control of the asteroid field. Neither would compromise. War seemed inevitable. On the 23rd day, the Kessari delegation walked out. The talks were over. They would settle this through force. Jiwoo asked for one more meeting, just one. Reluctantly, both sides agreed. You're both focused on winning, Jiwoo said when they gathered, on getting everything and leaving the other side with nothing. That's the galaxy's traditional approach. Winner takes all. But there's another way. A human way. She pulled up a new holographic display. What if neither of you owned the asteroid field? What if you formed a joint development corporation? Equal partners sharing both costs and profits. The field has enough resources for decades of mining. Divided, you both spend resources on war and get nothing. Together, you both profit. That's impossible, the Kasari ambassador said. We've been rivals for centuries. So were many human nations, Jiwoo replied. We fought terrible wars. But we learned that cooperation often brings more benefits than victory. It takes longer. It requires patience. But in the end, everyone wins. The Vorton representative leaned forward. You're suggesting we trust our ancient enemies? I'm suggesting you try something new. Build trust slowly. Start with a small joint mining operation. If it works, expand. If it doesn't, you're no worse off than you are now. But if it does work, you've just turned an enemy into a partner. That's worth more than any asteroid field. It took another week of negotiations to hammer out the details, but eventually both sides agreed to try. The joint corporation was formed, carefully structured to ensure neither side could dominate. It was fragile, uncertain, but it was a chance. The agreement was signed in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. As Jiwoo watched the Kesari and Vorton ambassadors shake hands for the first time in their species' history, Hayun leaned close. You did it again. Found a solution no one else could see. It's not about being clever, Jiwoo said quietly. It's about being patient enough to look for better answers. That's what persistence hunting taught our ancestors. Don't just chase the obvious solution. Keep moving, keep thinking, until you find the right one. News of the successful negotiation spread quickly. 3 more species requested human mediators for their disputes. Universities across the galaxy started offering courses in human diplomatic strategy. The phrase persistence diplomacy entered the common vocabulary. Back aboard the Promise Keeper, Jiwoo reviewed reports from across human space. The medical supplies were flowing freely, saving lives on colony worlds. Human advisors were working on a dozen different planets, sharing knowledge about agriculture, medicine, and engineering. The martial arts exchange programs had expanded to include 53 different species. Hyun Soo, now a full lieutenant, brought the day's communications. Captain, there's something here you need to see. It's from the far rim beyond explored space. The message was simple. An unknown species had detected human broadcasts. They had watched the fight between Jiwoo and Kale. They had observed the peace negotiations. They wanted to meet. They wanted to learn more about these persistent humans who seemed to approach problems differently than anyone else in the galaxy. Jiwoo stood in the observation deck that night. Her senior staff gathered around her. Taemin, back from his teaching duties. Hayun with her endless curiosity about new species. Daejung with his tactical assessments. Hyunsoo with his communication expertise. And new faces too. Alien crew members who had joined because they believed in the mission. Unknown space, Taemin said, studying the coordinates. Could be dangerous. Everything worth doing is dangerous, Jiwoo replied. She looked at each of them in turn. We started this journey to secure a trade route. One simple trade route. But we've done something bigger. We've shown the galaxy that humans have something to offer beyond technology or military strength. We've shown them persistence, patience, the willingness to find solutions that benefit everyone. And now? Hayun asked. Now we keep going, Jiwoo said simply. There's a new species out there wanting to meet us. More challenges ahead. More opportunities to build bridges. That's what humans do. We persist, we endure. We outlast every obstacle until we find a way forward. She looked down at her hands, those empty hands that had started all of this. They were steady, strong, capable, not because they had claws or armor, but because they were human hands. Hands that could heal or harm, build or break, hold tight or let go. Hands that had carried humanity from the savannas of Earth to the stars themselves. Plot a course, she ordered. Let's go meet our new friends. The Promise Keeper turned away from known space, heading toward the unexplored regions beyond. Behind them, they left a galaxy that had changed. Species that had learned new ways of thinking about strength, about conflict, about cooperation. Seeds planted that would grow for generations. Somewhere on Nexus 7 in the training center, Taemin's students practiced techniques that their grandparents never imagined. On dozens of worlds, negotiators tried patience instead of pressure, seeking solutions that benefited everyone. In the council chambers, delegates remembered that there were many forms of strength, and it all started with one moment. One challenge. One human woman with empty hands facing an opponent who thought size and armor were everything. Kale had mocked those empty hands. Seconds later, they shattered his ribs. But more importantly, they shattered assumptions, shattered old ways of thinking, shattered the idea that strength came in only one form. Jiwoo stood at the viewport watching stars stream past as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead, a new species waited. New challenges. New opportunities. She smiled. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as the strongest or the fastest or the most armored, but as the species that never gave up. The species that could outlast any challenge, adapt to any situation, and find solutions others missed. The species with empty hands that could change everything. And the journey was just beginning.